Hi, welcome everyone to this beginner guide on the Opus 64 number 1 Waltz by Chopin, also known as the Minute Waltz. This video is going to be aimed at those who want to play it, those who want to know a little bit about how to practice it and how to solve some of the challenges. I won't go into too much in depth of some of the things, because otherwise this video would take 2 hours, and I think if you're a professional anyways, this or if you're quite a good pianist, this video is probably not for you because you already know how to do these things. So this will be aimed more at beginners and people who just would like to learn this piece. So if you don't know it, I can play a little bit. So you probably recognize it right off the bat. This is one of the most famous Chopin waltzes, maybe one of the most famous Chopin pieces in general. And I would like to go through some things and show you some ways to practice, some tips and tricks and so on. So if we start here in the beginning, you can see that there's this motif, right? Which repeats, it kind of goes back and forth. And what's important to notice is that there's a slight deviation in the beginning. So there's a slight change, right? It's not just, but he actually goes to the B flat before he goes to the C. And this you have to be a little bit aware of. In the second time where it repeats later on, it actually does not happen. It just stays on the C, but this is just to keep in mind. And about the trill in the beginning, right? There are different ways to interpret and play it. But the way I think is most common is just to do a single note trill like this. So I think there is multiple variants. Some people like to start from the top, you know, or make it like a longer trill. I think you're free to choose how you want, as long as the trill rhythmically makes sense, meaning the bar should be 3/4. So you should just play a slight trill. Most commonly, I believe, is just the one that I also do, which is... And what's important here is two things. First, the accent. We want a little bit of accent on the A flat, right? So there's an emphasis. And also that we play leggero, meaning the quality and of articulation should not be, first of all, too mechanical, but it should be light, and there should be almost like a little bit of air between the notes. If you understand what I mean. It's just not the most sticky of legatos and not the most articulated of sounds. Yeah, leggero means light. That should give you an idea of how it should sound. And then for the fifth finger or fourth finger, you're free to choose which one you want to use on the C. So me personally, I think I'm fine with both. And if you have some stability issues with the fourth finger here, well, then actually it would be a good practice for you, I think, to take the fourth finger and see how you do. But in case that does not work out for you, you can go with the fifth finger. So you're free to choose. Probably fifth finger is a bit more stable. And make sure that you also rotate the hand accordingly, that you don't end up like this, but more like this. Yeah, so the fifth finger is more straight to the keys. This helps you with getting the right control on that fifth finger. We actually do not have any dynamic written in the beginning. It just says leggero, but this should give you an indication that we are not in forte. Definitely, yeah, we're probably somewhere piano or even pianissimo. I mean, interpretation can vary, and there is not one right or wrong, but you have to remember that there is a crescendo later on right here starting, and we do open up the phrase until the B flat. Yeah, so if you start too loud, then you don't have anywhere to phrase to, which is why I believe you should start piano or even pianissimo if you want. Like this, you know? Because you want to open up to that B flat, right? So I think you should not start too loud, and you should have some space to develop things. The left hand sets in after 4 bars of left hand silence, as you can see here. This is all silence, 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 and then it starts. So you should have a little bit of extra oomph, but be careful with exaggerating here. Just a little bit. You need to introduce the left hand in a natural way, you know. I believe you should not just start as if nothing ever happened, but you should maybe a slight kind of emphasis, or just to present the left hand that it has entered the conversation. And then of course the crescendo. So about the crescendo, first of all, don't go to fortissimo. That should be obvious. And also you need to use the pedal here, because the first 4 bars have no pedal, and then when you start to use the pedal. And the way here that you could be mistaken is if you keep the pedal for the whole of the bar like this. I think this is a common kind of mistake. Instead, you should lift the pedal after the 3rd note. Like this, yeah? This creates a different sound already, because it gives the last 2 notes right here in the right hand. If you look right here, these are going to be the ones that are pedal free. Does it change the sound? Of course it does, because you have only legato, right? Right here. So you create this kind of difference and nuance in the sound, which sounds way more interesting than having the pedal planted on the floor for a whole bar. Right? I mean, that sounds quite boring. For the fingering of the scale, this is going to be a standard fingering. And of course, don't forget the emphasis on the top note. This is going to be one of the most challenging technical aspects, this one. Because here, actually, you can do things in different ways. You can either do like this, that you play the 2nd finger twice in a row for the trill, or you do also what's written here in the score. If you look, is a 2 and 1, all right, and that looks like this. The idea here is that you don't repeat the same finger twice, which makes sense, yeah. You're free to choose here how you want to do things, yeah. You can do the same finger, or you can change. Either way, I think helpful is if you lift the hand slightly, ever so slightly, before you play the trill. Like this, yeah. This is going to help you with, first of all, separating the notes, in the sense that you think in 2 different groups, yeah. Thinking is huge, by the way, in piano playing, yeah. You need to always think in, you know, what am I doing and how am I grouping things? It's not only for you, but also for the muscle memory and more things that are motoric. Either way, it's good to have a slight gap between. Maybe when you practice, make the gap a bit bigger, and then try to minimize the gap. So that in the end, yeah, in the end you have a smooth transition from the end of the phrase here to the trill, which actually that is the end of the phrase. So you also have to diminuendo towards it, yeah? Don't play the trill too loud, but rather end like this. And then the next bar immediately have more emphasis, yeah? So I'm exaggerating here to show the point, but you should think that this right here, right? This and this right here, you see that? That is essentially the same. And we are in a kind of decrescendo starting from that point, yeah? So you should think similarly. You have also a trill here. which you can also use different fingerings in bar 12 right here. You can use different fingerings, for example, you can use 4 or 3, and it's up to you how you feel best, yeah, and how you feel is the most stable option. We have to phrase things naturally, which means you have to come down here from the phrase and go back to a similar kind of dynamic that you were in the beginning. If you look at these 2 points, should be kind of similar, right? I mean, specifically, I meant here, yeah. They should be not too distant in dynamic, okay? And this then continues and repeats, and then we get to the essentially the new section, which is right here, bar 21, I believe. So one thing here is you have triplets. Sorry. And so on. One thing to watch out for is that the triplets are not too fast, yeah? So this would be wrong. Rather, you should be... a triple has to fit naturally into the bar. Also, if you have some issues with rhythm, then I recommend just very slowly practicing and making sure that the notes happen at the right time. Like this, right? Because you want to get the triplets and the rhythm right in a slow tempo before you continue and go to a fast tempo, and then you can't recover from it. Again, watch out for the crescendi top of the phrase. You want to have a little bit of air, you know. Something like this, yeah. You just want to naturally round off the peak. Now remember, this is a beginner tutorial, so I'm not going into many interpretational kind of things and nuances. I'm just generally saying this should be always paid attention to. The top of the phrase, round things off a little bit and then come back down. It's very important, and it's really the essence of this kind of music here. On the next page, we find that essentially the whole thing repeats, but a little bit higher, so you can give it an extra emphasis if you like. However, the thing is essentially the same, and always watch out for the length of the pedaling of the left hand, that is not too long. And then we arrive at the middle section. And so on. One thing that I think is important is that whereas you have more strictness in the first half of the piece and so on, maybe you incorporate more freedom here. At least that's what I would do, right? This is a bit more free lyrical thing. And also, if you look at the right hand, it changes drastically in structure, right? Instead of all the notes that we have before, even if you look right here, right, you have all these runs and 6 and 3 plus 4, etc. Here it's quite thin, right? You only have a couple notes, so you need to make sure that those notes really sing, yeah. And so on. So you need to make sure that the quality of the right hand is quite high, yeah. You don't want to end up playing the notes too evenly. So think in a very long phrase. One trick I have for some students is if you have too few notes and you can't think the phrase like very long, first of all, don't worry, it will come with experience. But for the time being, you could add extra notes. And so on. So you just fill it with notes, and then you can get a more clear picture of how you want to go and where you want to go to. A little bit caution here with the polyrhythm. That's also one thing that usually does not sound so smooth. Sorry. You always need to think, if I listen to just one hand, is it smooth? Right? Or the left hand? And then of course, you need to combine it to a smooth polyrhythm 3/4. There are apps out there that offer metronomes that, you know, you can put in polyrhythms. Sure, if it helps you, you know, 3/4, 8/11, whatever. It gets more complicated in other pieces. But just getting those polyrhythms right makes a huge difference. If we continue, you see that I think here is important that you also, it's almost like losing a train of thought a little bit, right? Sorry for my left hand, yeah, I haven't played this piece in ages. But either way, it's important that you really understand what is the music actually trying to say. And so on, you know. So I think this is one of those moments you can take a little bit more time, do a little bit more rubato, and really show that you also understand what the music is telling us. He adds a little bit of variation. Like this with the grace notes, okay? Don't play them too importantly, right? But also not too long, okay? So this would be, of course, a mistake, yeah? So just a grace note, just short. And I think it adds, I mean, you don't have to emphasize it too strong. Everyone can already hear it, you know, because it just changes the structure of it. And then we get to this very long trill at the end of page 2, right? And here, again, multiple ways to trill it. First of all, you can just go with 1 and 3, for example. And if you do that, you can shake a little bit, right? To make the trill a bit easier. You can also go with 2 and 3. And you can also do 1, 3, 2. So 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, or 1, 4, 2, 3, which would be Michelangelo trill, like this. However you want to do it, there are multiple fingerings you can choose from, but it just has to be evenly, and it's quite a long trill, yeah. So take something that works, play it not too loud, and then crescendo. And so on, right? So you don't want to start too loud because there is this crescendo here at the end to watch out for. Okay, how does the piece continue? Basically, it repeats here, but instead this time it explicitly says forte, which is different than the first time. And then explicitly we go back to piano. So those dynamics you have to take into account. Otherwise, things are the same, but with way more clear dynamics, at least. This right here in the bar 78, you really have to play triumphantly, and I believe you can be a bit less strict on the pedal timing. And on the next page we find that we get this pianissimo here, which is also in parentheses. This is going to depend on which edition you use, but either way I think it's quite fitting because we are actually... What's important also in the end is that this run here is quite fast. And then you want to be together with the A flat, or no, sorry, A natural in the right hand, and A flat of the left hand. But either way, you have to be careful that the timing of the left and right hand is correct. It's important that the end sounds grandiose, big, you know, and not like a small sound. So this was the beginner guide. As I said, I didn't go into a ton of detail, but if you would like to ask me some questions. You can book a lesson with me and then we can go into much more detail. This should be more like an overview of things and give you some general practice tips and how to improve the piece. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and I'll catch you in the next video.